Guess what's 20 years old today? Or is it really? I'm actually not sure, because there seems to be conflicting information all over the internet, and the only thing anyone can agree on is that the initial release of Unreal Tournament was in November of 1999. The most common reference seems to be November 30, so for the sake of me not looking totally stupid, let's assume that that's the correct one. After the release of Unreal, Epic Games and Digital Extremes realized something. Although the single player was very well received, people were having lots of fun with the multiplayer component. But apparently the netcode wasn't up to par, so they began working on ways to improve it. One idea was to release an expansion pack with improved multiplayer. Unreal did get an expansion pack, Return to Napoli, but in their plans was something else. A project named Unreal Tournament Edition. While the staff responsible for Unreal came back for this new project, the team encountered a few setbacks. Still, new team members were recruited, including some fresh blood from the modding community. Jack Porter, creator of a mod called uBrowser, joined the team and upgraded the game's menus to the Windows-like interface seen in the game and in updated versions of Unreal. Epic and Digital Extremes were also running a bit short in the visual department, hiring a new artist to help them create textures for all the new assets. The sound department once again features some familiar names, such as Alexander Brandon and Sonic Mayhem. Apparently, the development tools were also a bit messy, but regardless, the team eventually pulled through. And thus, in November of 1999, a legend was born. Unreal Tournament was released to much acclaim, sales, and an obnoxious rivalry between its fanbase and that of Quake 3. Yeah, as it turns out, having two fast-paced arena shooters be released within 2 days of each other was just asking for competition. Although today we kind of know who ultimately ended up victorious in that kerfuffle. God damn it, Epic. I'm sure we all care about it, so here's the plot of Unreal Tournament. The Leandri Mining Corporation is full of greedy, evil bastards. There are riots in their mines, and people keep killing each other. Leandri decides to organize official tournaments, turning these conflicts into entertainment for money, money, money. You are one of the lucky sods participating in the latest one. And yeah, that's it. Unreal Tournament's gameplay builds on Unreal's multiplayer exclusively, so there isn't a dedicated single-player campaign. You do have a single-player tournament, but it's just a series of increasingly harder matches against bots. If you're looking for a single-player adventure in the style of Unreal, you're going to have to keep looking, because this isn't it. And neither is Unreal 2 for that matter, and we are all better off forgetting that piece of shit. If you're familiar with the term arena shooter, then you probably know what this all entails. Players spawn somewhere on the map where various weapons and power-ups are placed, preferably in well thought out positions. The combat focuses on having sharp reflexes and learning map control, rather than things like RPG elements or loadout selections that are extremely common nowadays. It's all pretty straightforward, easy to get into, hard to master, and most importantly, it's really friggin' fun. You have a variety of game modes available to choose from: Deathmatch and Team Deathmatch, Last Man Standing, Domination, Capture the Flag, and Assault. I'm sure you've played video games, so you should know how Deathmatch works. Just frag the most players to win. It's a festival of chips and snotballs, either in free-for-all or divided by teams. Last Man Standing is a variation of Deathmatch. It's still a free-for-all of chips and carnage, but with a limited number of respawns for each player. The last one to survive wins the game. Domination involves two teams fighting each other for the domination of designated zones in each map. Instead of killing each other, players have to kill each other while protecting the designated zones. The team in control gradually scores points, and the one with the most points at the end wins the match. Capture the Flag involves two teams infiltrating each other's base and grabbing their flag. Flag, as in a flag. No, it's not a field lattice generator. That would be friggin' stupid. Bring the enemy's flag back to your own to score a point. The team that reaches the score limit or captures the most flags is the winner. Then there's Assault, which is quite the interesting beast. While Unreal Tournament does not have a regular single-player campaign, I guess that Assault maps kinda sort of work like a campaign mission, maybe? Just a little bit? Every round there is an attacker team and a defender team. The attackers must complete a series of objectives within the time limit, while the defenders must stop the attackers from achieving their objectives. Successfully clearing all objectives earns the attackers a point, while successfully preventing them from completing the mission earns the defenders a point. The objectives can range from opening doors and flipping switches to blowing things up. The weapon selection and placement is also deliberately chosen to complement the objectives, and rounds tend to be short, so it's all very fast-paced. It tickles a certain part of your brain as you rush against the time limit. Unsurprisingly, Assault mode plays quite differently from the rest. It was also very popular in its heyday, and voices of disappointment were inevitable when Unreal Tournament 2003 didn't include it. Speaking of which, Unreal's Dark Match mode doesn't return. In fact, the closest we ever got to it again was in Unreal Tournament 3 with a single deathmatch map called, well, Dark Match. It's pretty dark. In terms of how it feels to play, it's pretty much the same as a tweaked Unreal. Given that this game is set in the same universe, it's not surprising that the arsenal at your disposal shares some similarities. You start with two weapons. One is the Impact Hammer, a point-blank weapon that charges up the longer you hold the fire button. Max charge deals a ton of damage, but being the game's only melee weapon obviously puts it at a disadvantageous position. Fun way to simulate bumper cars though. The other starting weapon is the Enforcer pistol, which is kind of like the automag from Unreal. Primary fire is slow but accurate, while outfire is fast but less accurate and kind of trash. Unlike the automag, however, picking up a second Enforcer allows you to dual wield them, which actually isn't half bad. Next up is the Bio Rifle, and man, this thing was just a pile of dicks in Unreal. But watch your ass, because it's back with a slimy vengeance. Just like the original pile of dicks, you either fire individual snot balls or charge up for a big ball of concentrated snot. Let it charge all the way and you can basically evaporate whatever is in front of you, and yourself too sometimes. The Bio Rifle has a bit of a bad reputation due to the awkward trajectory of the snot balls, but once you get Stockholmed, it really is quite the powerful tool. The secondary fire is pretty much a portable nuke. Next up is the Shock Rifle. While it looks much less edgy this time around, functionally it's pretty much identical. Primary fire is a highly accurate shot, while secondary fire shoots out some energy balls. Shoot your balls and get a big boom. And now for something totally new, the Pulse Rifle. It has a rotating thingy that fires a fast stream of energy balls that travel in a straight line and hit enemies for a small amount of damage, which makes it really hard to hit with if you don't read your shots properly. The secondary fire is a lot more reliable despite its limited range, unleashing a constant ray of middle finger energy at the target. For something less new, there is the Ripper. This is an altered version of Unreal's Razor Check, and the primary fire works much the same. It shoots blades that bounce around surfaces and can decapitate enemies if aimed right. Rather than being able to control the blades' direction, the Ripper's secondary fire instead shoots out blades that explode when they hit surfaces instead of bouncing back. The minigun remains the dealer of swift death that it was in Unreal. Fire it fast or fire it faster. Next we reach the glorious flak cannon at last. This bad boy works pretty much the same as it did in Unreal, and that's fine. You don't mess with perfection. The primary fire shoots out shrapnel at high speeds, while the secondary fire launches a grenade that explodes into shrapnel when it hits a surface. It deals a ton of damage at close range, but loses a lot of its effectiveness at range. The rocket launcher also works much the same as the 8-ball in Unreal. Primary fire shoots them out like rockets, while outfire launches them as grenades. Like the 8-ball launcher, you can squeeze the rockets together in a circular pattern by holding the secondary fire button while charging up. The final regular weapon is the sniper rifle, which is a sniper rifle that looks like a real-world weapon and thus kind of out of place. Probably why 2003 replaced it with the lightning gun. Either way, it replaces Unreal's rifle. It has a scope and it shoots high-powered bullets with pinpoint accuracy. There is one more weapon, the Almighty Redeemer. This massive son of a gun is usually placed in hard-to-reach locations and only has one unit of ammo, for a very good reason. When set off, the payload causes a massive explosion that annihilates anything in its radius. It doesn't care if it's the enemy or if it's you, everything dies. Bonus points for its secondary fire, which lets you guide the missile in first person. There's also one other tool, the translocator. Primary fire launches a small disc, while secondary fire teleports you to it. This lets you more easily travel between hard-to-reach points of the map, or maybe even prepare some big-brain plays against your opponents. Don't get ahead of yourself though. If you think you can be a cheeky cunt and run off with the enemy flag using the translocator, then think again, asshole, because you drop the flag whenever you use it. But these tools of destruction aren't the only thing that changed. The dodge move was kind of awkward to use in Unreal because it just awkwardly nudged you along the ground. This was changed to give you a bit of altitude and is now, you know, useful. You're up against players with the same abilities as you instead of regular enemies, so you'll probably want to get used to dodging the rockets, racers and balls. To complement this, there is now a new power-up, the jump boots. These let you jump very high and reach high places quickly, which can be quite useful when there's a weapon or other power-up that you want in some hard-to-reach place. Keep in mind, however, that the jump boots only have 3 charges, so you need to grab another pair if you want to roleplay Italian plumbers again. Along with it, you have the usual damage amplifier, invisibility, etc. Other regular pickups like health and armor can also be found scattered around the battlefield, and knowing when and where you can acquire them is part of the process of getting good at Unreal Tournament. Which I sure as hell am not, and holy crap, there are so many maps to learn, especially with the bonus packs installed. But really, there's no need to worry too much about that. Just focus on having fun like the majority of players did back in 1999. I'm about to get ranty on your ass, but stick with my autism for a bit. You know how there are a bunch of old school skill-based competitive arena multiplayer shooters that inevitably fail to develop any lasting community and end up with single-digit player numbers after a few months? I feel like one of the reasons for that is their air of being all about the skill and of being too hardcore for you. It's kind of condescending, somewhat stupid, and quite a bit obnoxious. As impressive as those old skill videos might be, those don't represent the average player. Only a small portion of players were even half as good, while everyone else just enjoyed the game or set the bots to a lower difficulty that even your grandma could handle. I can't help but wonder if they aren't pushing away potential players because of the focus on competitive skill and being oh so hardcore. This doesn't have anything to do with Unreal Tournament in specific, but I feel like this was the best time to rant about it. It's something that kind of bothers me every time I see one of those pop up. Anyway, the Mutator system returns from its predecessor. In short, Mutators let you mutate the gameplay. Things like low gravity or instant kill shock rifles or heads that get bigger the better the player is doing. And guess what? The game actually comes with a few mutators this time. Amazing! Mutators are excellent because you can mix and match them to fit your preferences, and there are tons of fan-made mutators for all sorts of silly stuff. It's sad that this system hasn't been seen in more games. And just like with Unreal, I don't have much to complain about with Unreal Tournament. The only major thing I can discuss is the weapon balance, particularly the shock rifle and sniper rifle. If you're not familiar, hit scan refers to projectiles that don't simulate any physics, they just instantly hit the target. The shock rifle and sniper rifles are examples of this, but other common examples of hit scan projectiles can be seen in pseudo-realistic games in the vein of Call of Duty, or in weapons with very fast firing rates, such as Unreal Tournament's minigun. The problem is that players don't have a chance to dodge the projectile since, well, there's no projectile being simulated. This is balanced by, for example, being hard to use or having a low fire rate or damage. The question here is that the shock rifle and sniper rifle have pinpoint accuracy, a decent fire rate, good damage, are easy to use, and you can find them in most maps. The shock rifle also has the balls, and the shock combo has extra features, making it very versatile. The sniper rifle can also be especially deadly, since headshots straight up kill other players in one shot. Personally, I don't think they are too much of a problem, but some people would argue that the shock rifle is a bit too centralizing. The pulse rifle's outfire is also similar in that it deals tons of damage, but just lacks the endless range. I'm not a pro at this game, so I can't really argue much else here. I will, however, argue that the Ripper is a little bit of a giant pile of garbage because of this. Its regular shots are slow, weak and hard to hit with, and its outfire is basically just a much worse rocket launcher. Besides that, I guess the single player tournament mode can be kind of boring sometimes. Some of the matches have maps that are too big for the number of bots in them, resulting in some downtime. Most of the environments aren't quite as interesting as Unreal, but I mean, Unreal Tournament has a completely different focus from Unreal's single player. Though it's kind of weird how the Scar just accept to join the tournament. Not that the maps are badly designed or anything, far from it. There are plenty of maps that I'm not too familiar with, but for the most part they aren't hard to navigate thanks to details such as the color coding. Special mention goes to the S3TC textures included in the Game of the Year edition, which still look pretty friggin' good for a 20-year-old game. It's only a shame that they don't improve the weapon textures. And let's not forget how iconic parts of it are, like the announcer. Avid FPS fans from the time will recognize Facing Worlds and its music, a capture the flag map that takes place in an asteroid or whatever with two towers on each side. It's simple, it's beautiful, and you can push other players into the void. Or how about Deck 16, a multiple floor industrial facility full of platforms and questionable liquids, and which got billions of unofficial remakes in the sequels and other games. Personally, I'm more of an Unreal Tournament 2004 kind of guy, but this game is considered an absolute classic. It 100% deserves that title, and I can easily recommend it to any FPS fan. In 2000, Unreal Tournament saw a couple of new releases. For starters, you have the Game of the Year edition, which is the one you see in digital stores now. Well, kind of. Retail copies of the Game of the Year edition come with a bunch of new content. 3 bonus packs full of maps, character skins and mutators that were previously released for free, and 2 mods, Rocket Arena and Chaos UT. Like the name implies, Rocket Arena is... actually, it's not all about rockets. It's a modified version of the base game focused on 1 vs 1 duels, with every player starting with every weapon besides the Redeemer. Chaos UT is a bit more interesting, featuring new weapons and other things like a grappling hook. There were also plans to include Tactical Ops, a slower, more methodical mod with real-life weapons. This ended up not happening, but Tactical Ops did get a full commercial release in 2002, after everyone stopped caring about it and after Counter-Strike established itself as the game of choice for 12-year-old tryhards. Unfortunately, the digital releases only include the first CD, while the second CD with the mods and S3TC textures is nowhere to be found. Apparently, this is because they don't have the support and communication with the original creators or something, at least for the GOG version. On the bright side, getting Unreal Tournament up and running on modern systems is fairly easy. If you're installing from an old retail disc, you will have to manually update and install the bonus packs, but with the digital re-releases you can just swap one of the new renderers in it and off you go. Consider installing the old Unreal patch too. In fact, the team has recently acquired permission to maintain the official codebase to squash whatever bugs and incompatibilities remain. The S3TC textures are also available online if you want some extra sharpness on your walls. There are usually about 70 to 100 people playing online, but you can just play against as many bots as you want, even if someday it becomes a complete wasteland. Just another example of how important bots are for any multiplayer focused game, because you will always have someone to play with. And now, of course, I have to sneak 2004 into this video somehow. So, what if you could mix the two games together? Unreal Tournament 2341 is a mutator for Unreal Tournament 2004 that brings the classic arsenal into the mid-2000s, along with a few tweaks. The gravity and general air movement has been modified to be closer to UT99, and the weapons and HUD got a nice facelift, so extra points for that. Being a mutator also means that you can freely use it in whatever game mode or map you want. Want the classic weapons in Onslaught or Bombing Run? Yeah, sure, why not? I only wish the movement tweaks were optional, because in all honesty, the double dodging introduced in UT 2003 is great. And it goes without saying that, in the end, this is still UT 2004, so it will never be a carbon copy of the original. It still uses the adrenaline system, allowing you to trigger some temporary power-ups when the gauge is full. But it's not like you have to choose one or the other. Play 99 and 2004, they're both awesome. Still, this is as close as you can get to a remake of the good old classic. A classic game that is worth remembering and going back to. Yeah, I know, it's a shame that it completely disregarded the single-player campaign, but the result was an excellent multiplayer FPS that retains a hardcore following to this day. While I wasn't exactly hopeful to begin with, it pains me to say that, to Epic Games, the Unreal series is pretty much dead for good. But for the longtime fans, three things will always remain alive. Unreal Tournament is love. Unreal Tournament is life. Unreal Tournament is still better than Quake 3.